I'd like to declare the meeting of the 27th of January open. And I'd like to make an acknowledgement of country. We'd like to acknowledge the Ngadjuri and Kaurna people, the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of the Light Regional Council area. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are present today. And I think we've got a full attendance of elected members. Good to see. For our first meeting back this year. Apologies, Neil, leave of absence. No leave of non-attendance. Confirmation of council minutes from the meeting 9th of December. There's a recommendation on page 4. It's Councillor Michael seconded. Councillor Dean got in first. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. And confirmations of the special council meeting held on Tuesday, the 9th of December. There's a recommendation on the page there. Councillor Collin, Councillor Martin, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Communications. My communications there. Probably the highlight was the Australia Day yesterday. It was great to see Councillor Allison, Councillor Dean, Councillor Collin, Councillor Simon, and Councillor Peter and Councillor Annette. And Councillor Martin couldn't be there because he was receiving an award at the Gawler Australia Day. So congratulations on that award, Councillor Martin. And I think I didn't see Michael and Fabio. Were you there, Fabio? I didn't see it. Anyway, it was very. We missed a good day because it was really good in the farm centre. Gee, we were lucky, weren't we, that it was at the farm centre on that day. It would have been hot elsewhere, but it was a very good day, I think. Thank you for your attendance. So 4.2, requested documents correspondence to be tabled. Petitions nil, deputations nil, adjourned business nil, action items pages 6 to 11. Current status of all action items are noted. Recommendations from committee. Infrastructure and sustainability 10.1. I missed something. Action items. I haven't run through them. So we run through action items as we go through by page. And they start on page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Okay, recommendations from committee. Infrastructure sustainability reports, Clare Road upgrade, project upgrade. It's information item prepared by Jason about the current situation at Clare Road. Are there any questions on that report, Councillor Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Bill. Just noting the significant cost involved in undergrounding the Sapin, which I can sympathise with.
Just that information is confidential.
No, it does. It says it in here.
Oh, does it?
It cost $9 million.
It doesn't list it. We can't mention any actual values.
But it says it in the report.
Oh,
it says $9 million.
Right. Good.
So to the extent that it does say that, I lost where it is. Yeah. So just for your confidence, it's page 13, the second paragraph in italics.
Yep.
On that, noting that we're progressing to design, presumably on that basis, knowing that that's a risk, we looked at where we could avoid potentially, reduce the extent of Sapin undergrounding or find other ways of building around the poles or something to try and bring it down.
Pass it over to Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you, Councillor Michael. The current status is to seek the 100% design and the total costs. Once we're at that stage, we'll then look at what the total costs end up being and how we make that work within our budget.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Collin.
Yeah, how are we going with the government?
Had a meeting with MP Penny Pratt. I know she's the other side of the political divide at the moment, but we did talk about the project and trying to push it forward. But again, she's working on the other side, so it's a bit difficult. But at the same time, we're also working on getting the design 100% completed and also waiting for a response back from DIT. Just given the information that was in confidence provided to council a couple of weeks ago about the potential costing, about how we might look at working with DIT on that particular issue. So I won't go into detail because it was still, as I said, the stuff was in confidence.
Any further questions? Infrastructure and environment monthly update. And Jason's prepared what's been going on recently. Any questions on that report? There's no questions. There's a recommendation on page 20. The council receives the infrastructure and sustainability reports and the contents therein be noted. Councillor Nets moved it, seconded. Councillor Ellison, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Strategy and economic development reports, nil. Reports for information. The quarterly update capital renewal program. From Brenton. Are there any questions on that report? It's an excellent report. Thank you, Brenton. Hewitt Centre progress update. Pepper's very keen to get the library up and going. Any comments or questions about the Hewitt Centre? I think Pepper might just like to make a little statement about opening times and things.
Yeah, so we're on track to have it staffed from 2nd of Feb. We take over officially on the 31st of January, and there's a pre-existing wedding booked for the 1st of Feb. So we're making sure that the pre-existing bookings will be going ahead. The library setup is due to happen the week beginning the 9th of Feb, with the furniture due to arrive on the 10th. So that's just got those lead-in delays because of the Christmas break and that in the factories there, but otherwise we'll be having a presence there from 2nd of Feb and we'll be open 9 till 5, Monday to Friday. And the booking system is also in the process of just being updated with the pre-existing bookings and things there, so then we can release it to the public and make sure that we don't have the duplication there or miss out on any bookings. So and we're taking inquiries for upcoming bookings as well, so that's still continuing too. So it'll be great to have it open to the community a bit more and get that space activated, and we'll have a I guess more of an official opening maybe late Feb, early March, so that we know that it's all set up and ready to go and get people in there.
Thanks, Pepper. Any questions for Pepper? Thank you. Northern Parklands Cuddly Growth Area. Kyne's prepared this report. I actually thought I was quite interested in this because the original announcement didn't include any of our land, and it was all south of the river. So this report actually covers land that's in our area and will involve compulsory acquisition from some of our ratepayers along the river frontage at some stage down the track. So someone may mention to you that they this is happening. So it's just really an awareness of that, that report. And this cattle growth area, or the parklands areas is a long-term thing. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it's something we're going to be involved with in the future, I think. Are there any questions for Karen? Thank you. Thank you for preparing that. Another good report. The local area plan. Yeah, presented by Kind. A simple report. Lisa, do you want to make a comment?
The local area plans are largely now legislated through the state government only as late as last year. So we are required by legislation to prepare these plans ongoing. They'll be done initially. The first version will be due by September 2027, and there'll be 5 yearly reviews from that point onwards. So we've just foreshadowed that there will be work that the council needs to do. It'll be pre-engagement with its community. It'll be preparing the plan, further community consultation. But in order to inform what we put in this plan, we will have to do significant investigations that will require some work from external consultants in preparation, such as CWMS capacities, perhaps engineering on roads, just as example, and stormwater. So we're foreshadowing that there may be some budget implications, and this will be further discussed with the elected members at an upcoming budget meeting.
Thanks, Lisa. Any questions on that? Thank you. 12.5, annual budget operating deficit mitigation actions from Karen. Any questions? Good to see we're working towards reducing that deficit. CEO monthly report. Mark's been busy. Any questions on to Mark? No, thank you. Councillor Peter.
I notice on page 39, 2024-25, what drove the movement from a small forecast surplus to a 2.688 million operating deficit? I couldn't make out or reconcile the 2.688 million.
Karen, would you like to provide an explanation? I think it's in the report anyway.
Yeah, through the chair. So that's the table, I guess, was just intended to highlight some of the key drivers. So certainly not a full reconciliation of that total. The report provided to council, I think it was at the December meeting, sort of delves through the detail of that, the audited end of financial year results. So that's probably the one to refer to for full reconciliation, if that makes sense.
Okay. Councillor Collins, do you got a question?
I was just thinking about budget 2. So where's actually sitting as far as income and what's going to be happening in the future? Like, it's a bit loose what this says. How's that progressing?
Through the chair. So what council effectively locked in with its decision in December, I think it was, in terms of 2 years of interim operations, is essentially fixed the separate rate for that period with no rebates or reimbursements to Bunyip. So that's fixed and highly certain. The remaining 4 years is basically reverts back to the original agreement, which relies on council still providing a minimum amount of water into the scheme. If that's not met, reimbursements and or rebates would apply. So, but it goes back to the full license fee of $900,000. Now, obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty around that, driven by climate, because if it doesn't rain, you don't get the water runoff and harvesting into the scheme. So, I guess from a council's perspective, what you've got is 2 years of certainty. You know exactly how much income you're going to get. Thereafter, it reverts back to the original agreement. Of course, there'll be more developed catchment in a couple of years' time. So there'll be, I guess, the risk around not meeting the full obligation to provide all that water into the scheme reduces, but it's still there. So there is some uncertainty around that. And I think the point that hopefully came out in the report was, does council want to budget for in an optimistic sense or a conservative sense around that risk of how much water goes into the scheme? And that's something that you might want to have regard to at that point. Probably not something to deal with, this coming budget preparation process, but certainly going into, the third year of operations, it's something the council might want to have regard to.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay. Go back to where we were, page 44. 44. Yep, there's a recommendation on the bottom of page 44 that the reports for information be received and the contents therein be noted by council. Councillor Allison, Councillor Peter, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Differential rates in growth areas, 13.1. This is quite an extensive report. I think Kyron's done a lot of work in this. It took me a couple of times to read it before I had any simple idea of it. So are there any questions that anyone would like to ask Kyron? Councillor Simon.
I think I've talked with Karen earlier as well, but I think it's a great report, and it really sort of teases out all the different possibilities, very precise and concise. So we know what's going on. I'm sort of happy to move a motion if that's possible. I don't know if there's any people want to ask questions first, but that's whatever. Yes. So I'm happy to. So we did receive an email during the week with us different scenario A. I think that to me seems a lot more fairer situation than doing the scenario that's on the screen right now.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy to move that. And
this is the motion that Kyron sent through on email. Have
Yes.
you got that, Corey? Nope.
which literally just it's in scenario A, which would rate all properties in a rural living zone at a differential rate of with a 4% discount at a differential rate of 0.96, which really sort of says that the people that live there, they don't have quite the amenities that residential areas do, most of them. So therefore, a reduction in rates is probably justified. And on the other hand, the people that live there and get rated on a primary production level and really don't do any primary production, they should pay a little bit more. So it's sort of an equal, and as Karen sort of calculated in his email that we received, it's sort of both accounts that's a zero-sum game. So we're not going to rake in any more rate revenues, anything. It's just more a effect of making things a bit more fair for everyone. So I'm all for that.
So, and what about the other items?
Now the rest, I think I'll be happy to move B with 1, 2, and 3 in there. So again, this is probably a fairness issue that it's much easier to say we all land that's all rural, like primary production rated land in residential zones should be rated residential with no exception. And then and we all have built in the possibility that if there's some real reasons for giving some subsidies or whatever to the people that have a concrete reason why that shouldn't be so, then we can look at those down the track. But as a policy, I think it's fair if you just include all of those. And again, I mean, this whole thing came about originally to sort of make sure that the people that do develop, the big developers, especially in the Roseville area, that they don't just set land aside and get charged primary production rates when in reality they got residential land that they will be developing. And in my opinion, I mean, there's some argument that would encourage faster development. I'm not really sure if that's the case, but my real argument is really that the public hand should get a little bit of that windfall gain that these people get by having their land rezoned. Like that's a massive windfall to them, and I think as a public hand we should get a little bit of that. And the other thing is that by them developing, we obviously incur a lot more work through all the development approval processes, and this would literally pay for probably one more person, one more planner, or one more full-time employee that could work on that. So I think it's all the way around a really fair sort of situation. So that's what I propose to move.
Okay, so Corey, you ready, or would you? I think the important thing about this is calling for a consultation paper and a rate pass survey. Now, Councillor Fabio.
Very comprehensive, through the chair first, very comprehensive report, Kyron, thank you very much. However, I do note what I believe to be some inaccuracies. You know, I call to page 51 of the report with the overlay showing the rural living area around Kapunda. Specifically the areas that are at the bottom left-hand corner, which would be the corner of Hawkers Creek Road and Harris Road. You've got at least 2 blocks there, which would be the 2 blocks from Harris Road up to Hazel Road, which I would strongly disagree that they are rural living. In fact, I believe Clyde Hazel and his family have farmed those areas as primary production areas for probably a few more years than what we've been alive anyway, maybe 150 years or so. So I don't know how that could be classified as rural living. Secondly, I'll make a point that primary production is not necessarily about where the locality is, but more so the actual intent or land usage. So although we do have a little bit of difference, I guess, in you know, in certain areas around our council area, I do believe without a proper assessment of the actual land usage and looking at historical land usage, I think it's a little bit presumptuous to make an assumption that that a property, just because it perhaps is smaller in size than neighbouring property or something, it should be classified as rural living as opposed to primary production. And certainly the type of primary production that's been used, you know, obviously broadacre farmers, you're talking massive hectares, you know, hundreds of thousands of hectares sort of thing, versus someone that could be a strawberry grower or something like that, which obviously doesn't necessitate a huge holding of land, but nevertheless is still a primary producer. This in just the same. When you look at other councils around the Adelaide area, and historically what's happened, you look at areas like Campbelltown, Newton, Athelston, all of that, all primary production area once upon a time, certainly, and certain areas still remain as primary production, and yet we're talking areas which are probably no greater than 10 acres in size, purely because of their horticultural type farming activities, as opposed to, like I said, feedlotting or broadacre farming. So I actually would prefer the OR option that was taken out, and I would, given the choice, I would probably move that one over this one, as I believe that we should be maintaining status quo, I think.
Well, at this stage, we haven't got a seconder for the original motions, Simon's motions, and Yeah, I mean. Alison's first. Alison's first.
Thank you, Mayor Bill, through the chair. Thank you, Corin, for that report. It's very well done and very large. I've had a discussion with Corin and I've also had a chat with Mark just on this. It does affect the Gawler Belt area and I have had phone calls from people. It does include me. I live in the Gawler Belt area. So a couple of things were raised that if we want to change things in Gawler Belt, there's a few things I'd like to see done if we're going to make the rate all one. Gawler Belt's sort of a little bit different than every other area within the council, other than maybe Templars. We don't have lots of different like footpaths and we've still got dirt roads. So we don't have street lighting. So people are sort of saying to me, if council want to change that, they'd be looking to have those things put in, but that's probably further down the line. So yeah, I'm on 10 acres roughly, and I've got horses and grow my own hay there. So you know, why aren't I a primary producer in that area? I've got a PIC number, I've got an ABN number. If I want to sell my hay, I can sell my hay. So, you know, it's a bit like a strawberry farm. I mightn't have huge amounts, thousands and thousands of bales, but, you know, what I have is good quality horse hay that people are after in that area. So I don't quite know how people can tell me that I'm not a primary producer. As for the areas within Gawler Belt that are already rezoned to a different zone, I'm not sure how that came about. I'm wondering if there's some more history on my neighbour 2 doors down there paying a different zoned rural living rate, residential rate. And I have no idea how they got that rate. So somebody might be able to tell me, but I'm happy to second the motion that Councillor Fabio is putting forward, which is the second one of the or, and see what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, I don't think you can do that at this stage. We'd have to see if there's a second on the other motion, which has been on the table, and then you could announce that you were preempting your motion if that motion is lost. Well, he hasn't done it yet because he hasn't spoken yet, but he's about to speak now. Colin.
Yeah, I'm prepared to second Simon's. But one question I do have, the remaining areas historic prime production land use. So what are we saying there? Is that in street?
Sorry, just say that again, Colin.
It's 3. What are we trying to achieve there in B number 3?
Yeah, through the chair. So there are a small number of areas within township boundaries that have always been in a township boundary, zoned for residential purposes that have been farmed historically, continue to do so to this day. They weren't the subject of a recent rezoning, so they're not something that was rezoned, you know, in the last 20 or 30 years. They've probably been really long-standing parts of the township. Small number of properties that fit into that category, and that's what we'd sort of include in that point 3, which is those remaining areas. So they're still within the zoned part of a township that could be subdivided and developed at some point in time. They just haven't been through a recent rezoning process. And by recent, I'm sort of suggesting in the last 20 to 30 years.
So to be clear with this thing, so this is just a report that the CEO is going to do. So he's going to investigate how if we can do this. If people want to make an objection to it, in the they still can. So if there's that's why I'm comfortable to second it. If people want to challenge it or not happy with it, I do see why council want to do it's because you're getting some people paying residential rate and some people are paying a prime reduction rate. and they're all living in the same area. So if you can just make it consistent across the board, they're all getting a discount, then they are getting a discount. They're not prime producers. Their main income is not prime production. So they're living in primary, claiming their prime production is probably not right. If you look at the ATO, like you've got to earn over 100,000 off your land to be prime producer in that. So, but yeah, so I think it's it'll be interesting to see what comes out, and hopefully the CEO can negotiate a good result.
It's more of a political question, isn't it? Councillor Michael.
Thanks, Mayor Bill. So I probably had a couple of questions if I could before we sort of delve into moving motions and so on. So just a point of clarification, in the email that supports the motion that Councillor Simon proposes, it indicates that the average rate for primary production contemplated in the areas covered by this recommendation, call it motion, is $1,971 or a total of $384,000. That surprises me. Well, how much of an impact are we saying this is really going to have when the residential rate intake is already $1.9 million in that area? It sounds really low, given what the capital value of, if our argument is that we're discouraging land banking and people are potentially earning a capital gain from their land, this would suggest otherwise to me. It's probably might be something we can answer here. It just stood out a little bit. The other one, I don't know if anyone wants to answer that. It's kind of a question come comment, but it just stood out to me. That's all.
Kyron,
Take notice
on
if you like.
your email.
Just in the email that underlies this motion, it indicates that the affected primary production properties are circa 385,000 of rates revenue, with an average rate take of just under $2,000. That doesn't seem right to me. If our argument is that these properties are experiencing capital growth by reason of some of these changes in zoning, that doesn't. But ultimately, we're impacting 385,000 worth. We're already taking $1.9 million worth of residential rates in this area.
That's correct. So probably the key point around scenario A is more looking through the council's rating policy principles. And it's around that equity principle, and particularly the definition around differential rates. So at the moment, council's got a pretty coarse mechanism. It's really land use only, not spatial. So when you start looking into spatial areas, rural living sort of stood out to be one where you've got quite a disparate impact there between primary production and residential, when arguably it's the same service being provided by council. So it was more of a principles argument rather than this makes sense from I guess a rate revenue perspective.
Okay. Sorry, the other question was then just the extent of the area. So it seems to me from the map in their report that everything sort of west of Twarts Road in the Gawler Belt come southern end of Roseworthy, and certainly towards the rail tracks and beyond, which we know is where the GARP is heading, is not included in any of this.
No.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what. No, it's not a criticism, but I guess if we're thinking about in the sense, and I'm against, the principle, the idea of land banking and things like that and getting things to development, but we also don't control that process, and that's decided at a state government level. So I was originally, given this is just for public consultation, I'm not going to die in the ditch over it, but I'm still a little bit confused about what it achieves, and I'll be more open to scenario B, I think, because it sits with me right that, we're talking about primary production properties in areas that are clearly no longer intended to be for primary production purposes. But I'm open to be persuaded otherwise if I've misunderstood it. So.
Councillor Farby, if you want to speak for the motion, this will be the final speaker. So I'll give you only one more chance to speak for the motion. So
Sorry,
You've only got one more opportunity to speak for the motion, but there might,
for this particular motion?
well, you've already spoken against the current motion. It wasn't seconded at that stage. Is that how would he sit? Cool. No, so how would that sit? Can you speak against it? It was moved? Yep.
Thank you, through the chair. It was moved, so it's already in play, and then the steps follow on. So effectively, you have spoken. That was your opportunity to make an amendment to this motion. So it's been seconded now. There's not the opportunity for you to amend it. I'm sorry.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Simon, would you like to make a final response?
Yes, I would. So there's a few issues in there. So one was that lots of actually used as primary production and in the rural living zones, as Councillor Allison pointed out. It's probably there will be very few, I suspect, and potentially there will be some relief provisions available that they could argue against it and probably win that if that's the case. So I think that's one issue. But the other thing is, even if there were, the fact is that these areas are zoned rural living, which that makes it a higher per square meter value than actual primary production. So therefore, they are sitting on a more valuable land, and therefore, I think it's just out of equity reason, it's fair to charge them a bit more than primary production. I think that's just a very basic argument that if you have something that's more valuable, like progressive taxing is just that. If you have something of more value, you get taxed more. So if you're actually growing strawberries on them, that's lovely, but you own a piece of land that's rural living, zoned rural living, which is more valuable than if it's just primary production on a per square meter basis. So I think that's a fairly, in my opinion, fairly fair argument. And the thing that the services are less, or that there's no services, probably a bit on that as well, because most of these areas do have bituminized roads and they are closer to towns. And yeah, I think that's why we give them a 4% discount and they don't get charged residential, because there is a bit less services available. And the last point is, this is just a consultation. So at this point, all we're saying is we're going to go out for consultation and see what the public says. If everybody screams about it and we got all these submissions that don't like it, then we still got plenty of time to amend it and change it and do better and do what the public wants us to do. But so at this point, I'm obviously strongly for this.
Thank you. The motion is on the screen, the new motion, which is not in our folders. As it says, it's prepare a consultation paper and a ratepayer survey based on the information consulted. So I'll ask for who's for the motion that has been moved. So we have 3 against the motion. We have 6. The motion is lost.
Maybe could I call for a division?
In corporate division, Councillor Allison. Those who voted for the motion, please stand behind their chairs. Thank you. Councillor Faber, have you got anything you want to say?
I'm glad it has gone that way, personally, through the chair. I think sense has prevailed. I understand the reasoning behind why some councillors have voted in favour of it. However, I believe in the broader picture, I think we've done the right thing. is there an opportunity now to bring forward that second part of the motion, please, the or segment? Yes, please. Yep. And in doing so, I'd like to say that it was only a matter of a few years ago that I received myself and all my neighbours and surrounding properties, which are highlighted on this map that Corin has provided. As no doubt, people in Allison's area were also notified that a lot of these smaller primary production properties were actually listed and included in the food production area map or guidelines, whatever, laid out by the state government for the protection of food production areas. Again, and I specified, like I said, I used the analogy of the strawberry farm before. It's not the size that matters. It's really what operations are being included on, or what operations have been carried out on that farm. And I do call it a farm because it's not having a contest here to see who's got the biggest property. It's about preliminary the usage of that land. I take on board Councillor Collins' comments about, you could reference the ATO and have a look at people's income or whatever. To me, that's a moot point in the fact that some farmers are more successful than others. There's plenty of farmers out there that barely scrape by, and in fact often send their wives or themselves into paid employment just to make ends meet. And to be honest, that's what I see as the true battlers. They're the guys that have not been bought into a multi-generational farm. They're the ones that have had to start from scratch with little more than a pick, a shovel, and a wheelbarrow. They've had to borrow the whole amount to purchase their property. And in doing so, yes, perhaps the land is of significant value, as Councillor Simon may have alluded to. However, it's the flexibility of having that land as primary production that has made that land attractive to them to set up their farming operations in that proximity or in that locality. Had that not had that primary production zoning, then perhaps they wouldn't have set up there. So, in closing, I'd like to say that it's not about the size of the farm; it's more about the intent. And if the intent is there to be a primary producer, then who are we to judge based on someone's income, their turnover, the product they're producing, how much of it they're selling, and how they're selling it. And and therefore, I'll be in favour of keeping it as it is. I think we've done quite well so far, and I don't believe there's any need for change. And in fact, if change does happen, it should be led by the state government and any changes that they may make to that food, to the protection of the food production area. If they seem fit and deem worthy to lift those things, so retiring small farmers are in a position where they can subdivide their land and do so if they so wish, then fair enough. But at a point where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, you can't subdivide. You don't have the level of services that town folk enjoy. And in fact, to say that most of these guys have got bitumen frontage, I think I don't believe so. Perhaps arterial roads have bitumen, but it's the same arterial roads that our primary producers do use. But for these guys, myself included, the level of service that's provided to me is no different to the level of service that's provided to, say, Colin as a broadacre farmer, and it's no different to my neighbours who are also encapsulated in this the primary proposal which was lost, and who all similarly share an interest and a keen passion to continue pursuing primary production on their properties.
Yes, Councillor Parber. Is there a second to the motion? Councillor put councillor Peter in, I think. Would you like to speak, councillor Peter?
Looking at it, looking at the recommendation, the last part, 1 and 2, to me have a whiff of, or against that, the earlier part of the recommendation had a whiff of rapacity, if I could use that word. And I think that the
Don't you know, councillor?
you're being rapacious. Hungry, grasping.
Vindictive.
Hmm?
Vindictive, I would say.
Oh, it would be, but not necessarily. But, the word raptor for hawks and eagles and things that come down and grab things with their talons. I see a whiff of that in the earlier recommendation, and really looking at our community. The second part notes the basis for councillors' differential rating according to land use remains fit for purpose with no changes proposed at this time. At this time, now we don't know what the future will bring, but anyway, I second that alternative.
Thanks, councillor Peter. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Simon?
And thanks, Bill. I mean, I'm a bit flabbergasted, to be honest, because I mean, I fully understand that some folk that probably are personally impacted by the first part of this motion, which would be the scenario, or like which one was it? The number A, like 0.2A. I can see that there's some issues there, and that I have to admit there's some unintended consequences in that, and I can see that. But the second part of the motion, that's why this whole thing came about in the first place. Like, we've moved this thing that we even at the point that we have this motion in front of us is that we were saying we need to do something about those developers that sit on land that is valued, like has maximum value to them, and they just out of, in my opinion, almost a cheating sort of way, only pay primary production rates on it. That's the reason why we're doing this. So to kick the whole thing out is like throwing out the baby with the bathwater. It's just completely insane to me. I can say, I'd be happily to say like we just don't do number A because, whatever. But to throw the whole thing out just seems crazy. And just to Peter's point, to call this rapacious or whatever that word was, like a raptor. The point A was exactly a zero-sum game. That was the whole point of it, that we take from one and give the others, so we don't take any more rates. That was exactly the point. So I don't know how that could be rapacious. And the number B, it's rapacious not to do that. They taken stuff from us that is duly ours because we need to pay for their development approvals. We need to do all that, and the little bit more rates will pay for that. So I'm literally flabbergasted. Obviously, I'm going to be against it, but I can see how this is going to go.
Thanks, councillor Simon. Just are you for or against, councillor Cole?
I'm against.
Is anyone for? Let's speak for. Yeah, councillor Cole.
Yeah, I just think, knocking back A, I agree with Simon, but A, you're missing the point. The reason we did that, or the reason it was proposed, was half the people already are paying residential rates. So there'll be more people paying less rates than more. So your suggestion, Peter, is just rubbish. But so there's people who, if you were to even it out, is everyone living in the real living zone would have got a discount. More people would have paid less rates than people would have paid more. It was just a fair, equitable way to do it. It also would stop the staff, if you'd read the report, And we get complaints every year from staff about the rates. So some people are paying residential, some people are paying predominant reduction. So, but there was no consistency in it. All we were doing is giving it consistency. If you weren't happy with the 96, make it 90. But don't knock, you knock the whole thing out before it even goes and gets goes out to public consultation. This we weren't voting for this. We were voting to put it out there to see if it was going to be any good. And now we've lost the opportunity through voting against that first one to now charge any developer who's hanging on to land in the Roseworthy area. We've lost that opportunity because you've canned it. The other problem we've got, the point I was trying to make about you're talking about the Aussie battler and he's got a little block of land. I wasn't talking about that. The ATO say if you're making 10 grand off your block of land and that's your only income, you don't pay tax. If you've got an income over 100,000 off the block of land, that's when you are targeted by the ATO. So to say that we're hitting the Aussie battler, that's just rubbish as well. So, you know, I don't think people have read the report and understood it, and it's a bit disappointing. But anyway, that's
Okay. Councillor Martin.
Yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Michael, sorry.
Yeah, I'll keep this brief. Mayor Bill, just to Councillor Collins' point and just on a point of process, I don't know that that opportunity is foregone. So I indicated I was open to scenario B, and I'll explain why very quickly in that I don't quite understand what's happening with scenario A. It's not right to suggest that rural living residents receive the same level of service as residential, because they don't. And I get complaints from people in Gawler Belt about that all the time. There are no footpaths. They don't get road lighting. They don't get hard waste collection like you do in places like Hewitt. So that's not quite right. Where I agree with scenario B is that it is suggesting, unless I'm misreading it or I have misread it, it's primary production land located in areas that are already rezoned as residential, and it refers specifically to areas like the Roseworthy Township expansion as an example. That's why I'm comfortable enough with scenario B. Whatever happens if this motion fails, I'd be happy to move scenario B. And to Colin's point, it's public consultation. But once you put something out in public, people pick up and run away with your idea, right? So that's where I sit with it.
The motion fails.
Okay, all right. Councillor Martin. Oh, you got to push a button. You were on. Yep.
I was on, sorry about that. Look, I know I'm new to this council, but I've had similar discussions with people that I know that farm both sides of the Gawler River. But I read the reports and I thought all we were looking for was to try and make things a bit more equitable. We had residential, we had rural living, and we had primary production. But both sides of the Gawler River, there are people with neighbours doing precisely the same things and they pay different rates. And that's why people come in and complain to any council, and I read it, and they can come in and complain for obvious reasons. So what we needed to do was, I thought what we were doing, this just says we're not doing anything, there's nothing wrong, and let's just move along, nothing to see here. I don't get it.
Thank you.
I've already spoken, I think.
You've already spoken, Councillor Michael, yeah, unless you've got a question. All right, if there's no further speakers, I'll put the motion that Councillor Fabio read that's on the board in front of you. All in favour? That's 5 against. We have four against. So for those who would like to, that voted for would like to stand behind their chairs. I think you're up there, Lynette, that'll do. Yes, it is not behind you. Oh, there you go. Excuse me.
Exercise.
Sorry. Yeah, yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for your patience. So we now move to 13.1. 13.2, sorry.
Let's not do it again.
Sorry, councillor Con.
Is there not a conflict?
If I may, through the chair. For transparency, I note that my property is within the affected areas by the proposed rezoning. I consider this to be a general interest shared with many landowners of whom I was elected to represent. I am not required to declare a conflict of interest, nor am I required to abstain from voting on the motion presented. Given that the rezoning applies to a large number of properties, I am affected in the same way as many other residents, and the impact of my property is no different to the broad class of landowners. LGA's advice.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I mean, it's up to each elected member to determine whether they've got a conflict of interest. It's not up to me. If it's questionable, we go to GAP. So it's up to the
Just
elected
a
member.
challenge that there's not a large number of land users we're going to get it. There was 100 and something, so.
Well, you may have to bring it up to the GAP. Okay, I think we've got on to go into this. If someone has a feeling that there's a conflict of interest, they've got to take it on to the appropriate body, which isn't us. It's up to them to make their decision. And then if someone feels again, it's got to go to the governance body. Okay. But we haven't precluded this item coming up again at another meeting. It's not a dead issue. So yeah, if part B wants to be brought up at a later issue, that can be done. So in a different format, different wording. But
isn't it 12 months?
No. Just your lights on, councillor Colin. Thank you. 13.2 Vehicle Parking Offset Scheme Fund update. Brought by Kyan there. Any questions on that? Councillor Simon, you had your hand in front of your light.
Oh, okay, yeah, if I may. Thanks, Mayor Bill. It's probably more a comment than a question. I understand what the recommendation is doing, and I've read the report, which is wow, quite extensive, and yeah, there's lots of thought in there, and great and all that. I just wondered. This really is just a point of kicking the can down the road once again. Like we've been at it for about 3 years now. I would have thought at this point we could have just written the thing, picked up the phone, had a quick check to Nick, and sorted this thing out. Like I don't understand why we didn't just do any of that. All we're doing is we're literally kicking the can down the road, saying we're gonna do another report, which like kudos to Keenan who written this report. This is just like. Wow, like it'd take me a month to write this thing. So because it's so detailed and good and all this thought and like he thought of everything and more. Like it's amazing. So I would have thought in the time that somebody that skilled writes a report that good could have just quickly come up with a little scheme that we already have anyway. We could copy, and like I said, have an email to Nick or call him. Like I literally know his personal number. It's not that hard. And sort this thing out. So I'm just again, twice in a row, I'm gobsmacked. So I'll be happy going for the recommendation because there's no other choice. But yeah, it's a bit, I'm a bit gobsmacked. Yeah.
Councillor, thanks, Councillor Simon. Lisa would like to respond.
With regard to that point, we have actually tried reaching out to the Department of Housing and Urban Development through the Minister, and that the staff actually recommended we write to the Minister because there was no response and no council had tested it. So indeed, we did try that avenue, and unfortunately, we were pushed down this particular path. And I do appreciate it is frustrating, but we can't get a direct answer unless we put something in writing. So we foreshadowed that the council wanted an answer, hence having already written to the Minister. We tried to circumvent that, but that was the best we could get with the staff at the department. So we apologise for frustration felt. We need to follow due process, and that's what staff are trying to do to help get this matter resolved.
I think we're in the election process too, so we're not going to get a decision till after the election, and and it's just that process of bureaucracy and governments and stuff. So there's a recommendation there that on page 69. Oh, Colin, you.
Yeah, I can't believe this either, really, because we started doing this the first year this chamber was elected. And Craig was going to do something about it. There was an idea that we'd actually write another one to supersede this one, change the numbers. Why didn't we write to the Minister 3 years ago?
Craig actually did indeed write to the department and actually did seek some further advice. And the department said that we apologise, but our interest at the moment is with housing and providing housing, and we've put it on the back burner. So that was the response we've got, and it wasn't for a lack of trying. Having worked with Craig for such a long time, he actually asked every 6 months, do we have an update? Do we have an update? And we got the same response. Our focus is with housing at the moment. If the chamber wants a fund brought up, there is a draft fund that staff have actually created. Craig's written more than half of it, and it is ready to go. If you would like to have an alternate motion, Councillor Ross, I've actually prepared something for Corey that essentially just alters number 3 and says that a draft scheme and fund actually be presented to the council at the February meeting. We can achieve that deadline should you wish to make an alteration this evening.
Thanks, Lisa. I mean, that's an option. There is the risk we lose that money if the minister changes his mind. Isn't that the story?
Well, I think we've got to spend the money, don't we? We've got to spend the money before something changes, because I thought, can't we spend it at Kapunda Street? So then at least the fund is then empty.
Yeah, that's right. No, but if they get more funding in now, if we set a new fund up and get more funding from that new fund.
But I don't think we're going to get any more funding because because the only way it was getting money put into it was because we were putting into it. Because we were rebating the people who were applying. So now no one's applying again because anyone who wants to do a development in Kapunda gets a car parking fund, so they don't want to do it. So I already had, it's just, we're just going round and round circles. So unless we re-put the rebate in and then we wear it, which is financially unsustainable, we got to get rid of the thing. Like it's going to poison the main street. It already has.
Councillor Collins, thanks, Councillor Michael.
Yeah, look, I think the reality, if you read the writing on the wall here, like with most things coming out of North Terrace when it comes to local government, I mean, this is going to be controlled by the minister. They've already drafted the legislation. You can see what's coming. So, to the extent that we create one and then it gets subsumed by, some state government overriding it, it's just going to create confusion, I think. I mean, I respect what Councillor Collin wanted to achieve a few years ago, but I think that, the political dynamics changed and we are where we are.
Excellent, Councillor Dean.
I understand Colin's frustration with this because I was involved in that from when I first got on the council. Back then we were able to negotiate parking numbers down, I believe, but I don't think that's allowable now, is it? And the issue is that what might be a sensible number in in Adelaide is generally far too high for Kapunda. Take the Foodland, for example. The only time I ever have seen that almost full was when they sprung that sudden lockdown during COVID and everyone pulled in to stock up on the way home. But other than that, it's generally no more than half full. So in other words, the amount of car parks that they were required to put in, which is about equivalent to all of the main street, I think, is too many. And that would apply. So I think with from my memory from the chemist one, the number went from 18 or 20 down to 10 or something like that. So, which reduced the amount they had to pay. So we ought to be tackling that issue, I think, for a longer term solution. I don't see any problem with expansions in the main street requiring extra parking, but if it's not an expansion, if it's a replacement, we need to make some allowance for that too, because the reality is that in country towns, I mean, I go to the chemist pretty often. If I don't get a park in front of it, I go around the block and by the time I come back, I've got a park. So it's not an issue, I don't think. People say it is an issue because they've got to walk more than 20 metres, which is, we're really doing an overkill in a situation that doesn't need it. And that's what we ought to be fighting.
Thanks, councillor Dean. Okay, we've got a recommendation on page 69. Is there a mover for that recommendation? My mover? Someone would like to put another recommendation up? Well, if there's no mover, this matter will lay on the table. Well, lapses.
Yeah, still.
I don't know where that leaves our parking situation. Well, it's probably the same story. We're waiting for the minister to make a decision anyway, so it's probably about where it is at the moment anyway. So, all right, that 13.2 lapses. We move to. It was a great report, though. Okay. Thank you. Groundwater water use. There is just a note to be a slight change to be made to this recommendation. Mark, would you like to comment on that, please?
Yes, certainly. It was just it's very minor. It's in number 3, rather than specify the exact amount because we don't quite know yet. I think we're being pretty bold there. $10,957. We've just put down up to 12,000. That gives a little bit of leeway there in case something happens. So if that's okay with the mover.
There a second to this motion? Councillor Collin. Do you want to speak, Councillor Collin? Okay, all in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Motor vehicle management policy. Mark's done a good report there. Are there any questions? There's a recommendation on page 84. Someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Simon, Councillor Dean. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. 13.5 closed circuit television. Security camera policy. Pepper's always wanted to be on television, haven't you, Pepper? It's a pretty simple report there. Any questions? We got Councillor move it. Councillor Martin's moving the. Councillor Ellison second. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. Plant and fleet replacement program update by Jason. Interesting report. Any questions? There's a recommendation on page 89. Someone to move the recommendation? Oh, 3 at once. Councillor Dean and Councillor Michael. All in favour? It's carried. Thank you. (13.7), the naming of the Greenock Centenary Park Mick Park. Mix Park, let's go with that. Those were the centenary at the citizenship awards yesterday. Would have seen Mick was very thrilled to get his award, and he spoke about this anyway. Councillor Allison moved the motion. Councillor Fabio seconded. All in favour?
No.
Oh, Councillor Simon's got to speak.
Yeah, I'd love to, because I think it's a very bad idea, and I don't even know why one excluded. I don't know where this comes from, but if I be Nick, I'd be embarrassed. Like this park. There was an initiative from the state government in 1936 to create these parks across South Australia to commemorate 100 years of existence of the first fleet sort of landing here. And there was actually, if you read the statements, that because there was grants involved, there's £50 grant that the state government given to this park. In the grant application, or in the giving of that grant, there was a stipulation that these parks need to be called centenary parks. The word centenary needs to be in the name. So to name it Schluter Park just seems completely random to me. That's one thing. But the other thing, it wasn't. This park is not here because of the Schluters. It's here because of the state government that initiated it. It's here because of the money that they funded, and it is here because of the Greenock Lodge that matched the funding of the state government to actually create the park. If you actually go to the park and look at that plaque, there's a nice big picture of from 1939 or 6 or whatever it is, when the grand opening was. Mr. Butler came down and all this sort of beautiful stuff. They had a whole week of celebrations to actually get this park going. There's like 70 people on there, and there's one, Matt Schluter is in the picture, but it's not his park. It's, yes, his people were involved in the committee, and he's still the president of the committee and all this stuff, but it seems completely out of the ordinary to call this Schluter Park. This is a public park to commemorate 100 years of settlement in South Australia, not to commemorate one family out of hundreds of families that put all their life, their volunteer works. And it even stated it started with a huge local effort and many volunteers hours from the community. That's how this park started, not with the Schluter family creating a park. And a little side note, the land that the Schluters sold for the cheap was just bad land that they couldn't use. I mean, on top of everything, it's not even a great thing. So I mean, I'm just completely against it, and I'm pretty sure Mick probably wouldn't want that either. So look, they're certainly going to vote no.
Thanks, Councillor Simon. Councillor Martin. Oh, sorry, Councillor Dean's got his red light on.
There's a lot of parks around already named after people, like Davison Reserve, that used to be called the Duck Pond. The centenary part of the name could even stay in there, call it Schluter Centenary Park if you wanted to.
Shoot. Oh, sorry. Councillor Martin, I thought you didn't know you'd finished, James. Councillor.
Yes, I just thought he's looked up. Look, I've run around that park a lot of times, and I've ended up when Mick was running the hotel. And look, I have a lot of respect for the Schluter family, but I'm a bit with Simon. There's no clear picture as to why this is being done. I've read the background, I read the summary, and it says, and yes, it's a good idea in some ways, but in other ways, it's a centenary park. It's been there for a long time, and I think it should remain as it is.
Thanks, Martin. Just before you, Councillor Megan, Megan's got some clarification.
Thank you, Mayor Bill. sorry, if I may add, after yesterday's Australia Day awards were handed out, the secretary approached me from the Greenock Centenary Park, and they actually did mention that because they're needing to change their constitution, they do want to keep the centenary name in there as well as recognition of the Schluter family. It's not necessarily for everything to the park, but also for the Schluter family and their work towards to what they've done in Greenock. And they would cite to me something similar to Dutton Park. So if the members felt more comfortable with the word centenary in the name, they can amend the recommendation if they wish.
Councillor Lynette.
All the years I've been on council, the Schluter family actually have looked after that park. They've going back to Mick's grandparents. They used to have their trotting horses that used to walk around on that park, and they looked after that park, the whole family, all those years. And I don't have a problem if you want to add in Schluter Centenary Park. I'm happy with that, as long as that name is in there, because the times that they've actually worked there and nobody even knew that they were doing it. They were the original ones that looked after it. So I don't mind if that name Schluter Centenary Park is used. I'm happy with that too.
It's Councillor Collin.
Yeah, I'll be voting against it. I actually rang Mick today and had a chat to him. It's been pushed by the committee, which he doesn't care either way. But there's history. The thing I totally agree with Simon. It's a centenary park, and it's been called that for 90 years. Comparing with Dutton Park, I know a few people are doing that, but Dutton actually donated the park and donated £500. So, that's a bit different. The Sluters sold it. They probably ran their sheep on it for 30 years to graze it. But I think, it could be the Schluter Pavilion or something like that. I think the name Schluter should be acknowledged in that park. But I think, there's been a lot of people lived in the village of Greenock, to choose one family to have that to take over for the Centenary Park that's been there for as long as it is, I just doesn't sit well with me. And I think that Mick should be, or not Mick, but the Schluter family should be acknowledged in another way. And I think there's plenty of ways to do that without renaming a park which has been named for that long.
Thanks, Councillor Collin. Now, Corey, we've moved them. This motion's been moved and seconded. Can we ask the mover and seconder whether they're allowed to have Centenary Schluter Centenary Park included?
Thank you, through the chair. An amendment can be proposed or can be moved to change it.
Peter hasn't spoken. No, you can't. You've spoken. Peter hasn't spoken, and Faber hasn't spoken.
Michael hasn't spoken.
Michael hasn't spoken. All right, there we go. So those are the members that can move an amendment to make it a Centenary Park. Yes, Peter.
I'll move that the word centenary be included.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? No, you can't do it, Lynette. Faber or Michael? You've seconded that amendment. Thank you. So then we'll have that's what this amendment is. So we've got it. Yeah, that's what it sounds like, doesn't it? It's through the Greenock Centenary Park. So but that's the motion. So we've got to move that amendment. So have a vote on that amendment. All in favour of the amendment? Okay. It's put your hands up again, please. That's 5. Those against the amendment? That's 4. So the amendment now becomes the motion.
Yeah, he did do.
Fabio did. Thanks, councillor.
Can't do an amendment.
A point of order, you've got a mixture there of,
Yeah, that we can't do.
so what I think, I understand therefore that the mover and the seconder both are happy to include the word centenary, so we don't have to do an amendment, we just add the word centenary, which is the other way to change motion.
Corey didn't accept me saying that, Dean. Corey didn't accept that when I said
It's a substantial change to the motion.
Yeah, well, that would have to. So it would have to be, Michael will have to be the seconder of the amendment rather than Fabio. No? So the amendment is lost. Amendment is there's no one can move the amendment, can second the amendment, because Michael's the only one that's capable of doing it. So the amendment is lost, so it now stands as Schluter Park. Schluter Park. The amendment's lost. Okay. No, we haven't voted on Schluter Park. Yeah. Okay, so we're now going to have a vote on the original amendment without the centenary added. So all in favour, you understand what we're doing? All in favour of the motion to change the Centenary Park's name to Schluter Park. All in favour? 3. Those against? 6. The motion is lost. So it goes back to the committee to make their decision if they want to. No, to whatever. Yeah, it wasn't lost. No, it was lapsed. The amendment lapsed. Corey, I think the amendment was lapsed. It wasn't lost.
It was.
No, there was no second.
No seconder, yeah. Can I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me, Corey, do we need the, those voting for it?
No, there's no division.
No division, okay. Fine. Yeah.
Okay, so we now move to 13. Oh, sorry, councillor Simon.
May I make a quick comment about that just lost?
Very quick, yeah. People want to watch tennis.
Yeah, who cares? I obviously acknowledge the huge contribution that the Schluter family done to this park, and by being against renaming this has nothing to do with anything against the Schluter family. They've been a great contribution, and without them, no doubt this would be different than that. The only thing is, I just think we should pick them out specifically. The one thing, and the recommendation that Councillor Collin made is we should maybe move a motion saying we should, or bring it to the committee saying that yes, we should maybe make a Schluter pavilion or a Schluter tree or a Schluter something like. Absolutely recognize the family because they've done massive work and huge contribution to this park, but that's what we should encourage, not just naming the whole park.
Right, so Councillor Song, would you like to move a motion in that direction?
Yes, yeah, if that's a move motion that we recommend to the committee to come up with some.
Yeah, there's a motion without notice here.
Yep.
Yeah, but I can take it now. I'll take it now.
Yeah. Okay.
Because we've done-
So that we recommend to the committee to name. I don't know what sort of features are there that we could rename in Schluter's name, but to somehow recognize the Schluter family's massive contribution to the park by renaming a specific tree or pavilion or house or cricket net or tennis park or anything like for the massive, or the gates, the Schluter gates, any of it. Like that would be just beautiful, and I think be a great thing to do that. But we should recommend the committee to come up with a better idea, literally, than that. I don't know how to word that such that it makes sense, but.
Explanatory.
Right to the chair. Area Park Committee. That the Schluter family be recognized.
Yeah.
In some form.
Yeah, that's right.
In some form. By way of naming that. The park and stuff like that. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Yeah, I mean, they understand what we're trying to get at.
That's no, yeah.
Gives us license to go and talk.
Yeah.
In a meeting.
What about the council right to the committee recommending?
Yeah.
I might spell his name wrong. Okay, is there a second to that? Oh, all right. The council requests the CEOs are right. Sorry, Corey. Megan's being very pedantic down there. Right, seconder for that motion, Councillor Allison. We're all done, I think.
Yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Allison. All in favour? Carried. All those against? Peter. This one, Peter. Thank you. On division, Peter? Well, here we go. 13.8, grant of easement to Shamrock Way, Roseworthy. Now, I hope this one's going to get through pretty quick. Councillor Collins moved it. Thank God for that, Councillor Collins. Any seconded? It's a pretty simple motion. Councillor, someone I missed that hand. The hand's the wrong colour. Councillor Simon, all in favour? Carried, thank you. Right. Yes, we now move to supplementary folder. Is 13.9. the amendment of the community land management plan and the license. So this, we're looking at the management plan, the license. That's all we're looking at with this motion. Lisa's got a presentation. Oh, that's in the confidential. Okay. So this is Lisa's provided a good report on this, and it's really just looking at the land management plan and the license. Are there any questions on this motion, this recommendation? Lisa, do you want to comment?
So all we're asking the council is to agree to proceed to community consultation on the draft community land management plan that recognises a slight area where Trinity College will maintain the grounds. So it needs to be reflected in the community land management plan and then the licence agreement. So we're only asking council to proceed to community consultation, and then that will be brought back to the chamber for a further decision.
Okay, can I get a mover of that motion? Councillor Fabio, second Councillor Martin. All in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Now, there's an item in confidence that is in relation to this matter, and I'd like to move that we move into confidence to consider. Oh, I've got to bring forward item 18.1, Rosalie Township Expansion RTE Social Infrastructure Deed Fund allocation. So I need Lynette and Dean, okay? And I now move, I need a motion to move into confidence to consider item 18. Oh, do we? All in favour? I thought we had that. 18.1, we move into confidence. Motion to move into confidence to consider that item. It's Councillor Simon and Councillor Seconder, Councillor Collin, all in. Councillor Simon and Councillor Collin, all in favour? Okay, so we're now going to move into confidence.
I'm sort of remotely aware of their current situation. What I'm not really aware of, and I guess I'm hoping that someone could potentially take this and answer it, is the current situation with the Freeling CFS and whether A, council are aware of it, and B, what's the current level of support from LRC to the CFS?
So Megan, you got.
Thank you, Mayor Bill, and thank you, Councillor Fabio. Elected members would be aware that the CFS purchased land from council some time ago, so they have a site in Clark Street. We are aware that they have developed concept plans because they've come to council for some preliminary advice, and that's been provided to them, and I believe they've changed their standard design to suit I think the heritage zone that it falls within. Lisa was part of that meeting as well, and they're progressing through their plans. I believe they are looking to start physical construction. I received an update actually last night, which I have emailed them back to ask if I could share that with elected members. But they're looking to start the next financial year, the actual construction, once they've got their proper processes in place. They don't get approval from council because it's Crown Development, but they still need to go through an approval process. As far as council's assistance goes, we have an MOU with the former committee for the Freeling Institute, which is now transferred to the Freeling RSL, between them, council, and the Minister for Emergency Services. And what that agreement is to for them to use the site they currently have. They park their trucks there, but they can use the Freeling Institute and they can use it for their training, for catastrophic days. They have to be on standby. They've made alterations, so they've got cleaning equipment for their breathing apparatus, and obviously they've got air conditioning. Whether they choose to use that or not, that's up to them. That's, I'm assuming if it's really hot or really cold or wet, they will. Otherwise, they may not. During the build, though, they'll have their equipment displaced, and that agreement, they will be utilising our depot yard to park their trucks. They won't be undercover. We've got not enough space for our own equipment. And they'll also be utilising our training room. So that will be for their nighttime training activities. And of course, if there's a catastrophic day, they'll have use of that air conditioned room to be on standby. And we're lucky we don't have too many catastrophic days in a year, because we obviously do book that and use that room internally as well. But we do provide a fair bit of assistance. We work well with the Minister for Emergency Services and his team, particularly SafeCom at CFS headquarters and Region 2.
Thanks, Megan. Are there any further questions without notice? Councillor Allison?
Thank you, Mayor Bill. I'd just like to thank Lisa because I think her time's coming to an end this week as filling in for General Manager. We've been working on quite a few projects in Gawler Belt, so I just wanted to thank Lisa for her efforts over the time.
Yes, I think we'll all back that up. Lisa, you've done a fantastic job, and although Craig's come back, we'd like to see him come back. We're sad to see you go too. You've done an excellent job. Congratulations. So I think we'd all be really impressed with the way you've taken the position. So congratulations. No, she's not going, but she's not going, but she's been pushed aside, you know. Surprising, Lisa, and no one pushes Lisa aside, do they? Can't. Thanks very much, Lisa. No more questions without notice? Okay, motions on notice. There's a motion from me, as you can see in front of you, regard to Farrelly Road. Farrelly Road is a road that is currently planned to be funded this year. It's a back road that serves farm properties. It's in quite good condition. I drove it down there very comfortably in my car just recently. So looking to the condition of Wasley's Road with the sheeting of the Penrice rubble was very dusty and very corrugated. So I'm suggesting that we move the funding from Farrelly Road to Wasley's Road and look to improve the condition of that road. So Councillor Allison seconded. Anyone like to speak? Simon, like to speak?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. The only thing, I mean, the Farrelly Road does get really bad in the winter. There's one low spot where sort of a creek goes across. So, but yeah, I'm all for that anyway. It's a much better use of our money to do.
Councillor Martin?
I know it's a bad road because even before I was elected, I was getting complaints about it. So I drove it before I was sworn in here, and yes, it's terrible and certainly needs this. It's a great move.
Right, thank you. All in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. We now need to move back into confidence to look at the Capital Works program. What have I done? Oh, motions without notice. Are there any motions without notice? No, there's not. So now we can move into confidence. Okay, there's a recommendation that we move into confidence. Would someone like to move that way? Councillor Nett, Councillor Collin, all in favour? Carried.